Hey, everybody in the Sales Hacker community. Welcome. I'm Colin Campbell, the Director of Marketing at Sales Hacker, and I want to welcome you to another awesome webinar. We have a great topic and lineup today. Perfect timing because Dreamforce started today. So today we're going to talk about how to be the best networker in the room. And these are some proven tactics from the folks at Bets Recruiting, and just want to run quickly through who is going to be sharing some awesome tips with you today. We've got Lauren Crane. She's the Leadership Recruitment Director at Bets. McCall Harwell. She's the National Events Director. And Melissa Hirsch, who is the Recruiting Enablement Director. They have such a cool lineup of information today. You're going to walk away with some really good information. But first, I just want to go over a couple logistics, a couple simple things. So housekeeping. This is being recorded. It's going to be sent to you, so if you have to step away or jump off, or you think a colleague would love this, you'll have the link to share it. And we want this to be as interactive as possible. The topic is networking, so let's talk. If you have questions or comments throughout, please feel free to use the Q&A feature, not the chat, please, and type in any questions you have. We'll try to get to them throughout the webinar. I think that should be it. So now that that's taken care of, I'm just going to run through the agenda in a little bit more detail, and then we're going to dive right in, wasting no time. So there's 5 big points here today. One is that we all think of networking as some formal thing where you go to an event, but there are a lot of unexpected opportunities that are kind of right under your nose that you might be overlooking in your everyday life. So we're going to get into that a little bit, things that are easy, they're right there. We're also going to talk about how to actually get the business information that you need out of all these little interactions while still making sure that you're showing that you care about the person themselves and not just, tell me your email, okay, bye, right? We're also gonna make sure that your intro, some tips on how to make your intro, what you first open with, actually leads to business value. So a lot of really little handy little things there, easy tips to do. And then lastly, this can get kind of awkward. Sometimes you don't know the people. If you're not practiced at this, it can be tough to get away from a conversation that's getting stale or to exit one so you can go start another productive conversation and meet some more people. Some good tips there. And lastly, kind of a common question, how do you break the ice? So there's really 5 really great tips that the Bets team is going to share about how to create an instant, real connection with people. And so with that, I'm just going to hand it over. Remember to type your questions and comments in the Q&A section as we're going. And I think McCall is up first with some tips about unexpected opportunities.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having us, Colin. We're really excited, Melissa, Lauren, and myself. So we're just going to kick it off. We're talking about the really unexpected networking opportunities that we come across and that our colleagues have come across and our friends have come across that you'd never expect, but always really have strong ROIs. So we'll hop into those. Something that we love is making sure that you're strategically attending networking events, right? There's a million events. If you live in a big city, if you live in a small town, you always have a plethora of events on your calendar and on your radar. So we like to encourage people to be strategic about where they're going and why they're going there and staying intentional. So a few things that we've all signed up for. There's a really great free newsletter called Strictly VC. It's a daily newsletter for all your VC news and events. VCs obviously plug straight into the tech community, and the tech community is constantly hosting fun activities, fun mixers, fun events. So we like to be pretty strategic about those. You can learn a lot of information through newsletters like that. There's a ton of them in each market, but that's one of them out here in the Bay Area that we love. Also, we like to host a series of really great events for people to come and network. So companies like our own, if you have friends that work at cool companies or you know people that are constantly in the industry, tap into them, ask them, what do you guys have coming up? What can we come to? One that we host is Tech Crawl. We host it here in San Francisco and also in our New York markets. It's an annual event. Imagine a pub crawl, only instead of going to different bars, you go into different tech companies throughout really cool neighborhoods in each market. So in San Francisco, we have it in like Soma and Financial District. In New York, we have it in Midtown and Flatiron. You get to go in, experience these teams' cultures, experience their brand, meet with their tech leaders. So it's really great, you know, staying privy to things like that. So ask companies like our own, ask your friends, you know, what events are you guys up to? What are you plugging into? What are you posting? How can I come? How can I get involved? Because that's information that everybody wants to share. Another one, obviously, is Dreamforce Week. So we were able to get our hands on this really great, the No BS Guide to Dreamforce, which we can send out to everybody after this. So come to those, you know, learn what's going on, learn the pulse of your community and what's going on, and strategically decide where you're going to go. Which definitely leads into another thing that we'd love to tap into, which are, you know, sports and weddings and concerts. Like when you're at these events, being our events director, it comes a little bit more natural to me, but our recruiters, I mean, these teams are constantly going and doing and hosting, and we take clients to sporting events, and we take candidates to sporting events. I actually met our CEO at a Cal football game, like 4 or 5 years ago, and you know, now here I am in-house at this company. So you never know, like when you're going to meet somebody and who you're going to meet, but always be ready to, you know, be intentional with your conversations and, you know, thinking of like how we even get to the events.
Yeah, it's definitely, public transportation is not fun, but there's definitely a way to make the most of it. You know, obviously it's a safe way to go to be able to get to these events and have a little fun along the way. Most likely you're probably going to be packed a little bit like sardines. We all know how fun it is to ride BART to work every day, but it's even more fun when we're on the train going to a game, everyone's in gear, or going to a concert and everyone has, you know, the artist on their t-shirt or what have you, and just networking with people next to you, having a conversation. Like, oh, Lauren, you like the A's, I like the Giants. This is going to be a rough ride. Yeah. So just having fun with it along the way. You never know who you're going to meet in those sort of settings. So taking advantage of those situations. And I know, McCall, you are going to a ton of weddings. You went to a ton of weddings.
Yeah, it's always wedding season. I was telling the girls earlier that so for this tech call that we host, we actually bring on host companies. So, you know, Crunchbase, Zendesk, huge tech companies. And there was one that we really wanted, and we were kind of having some trouble getting hold of them. And I randomly met their VP of sales at a wedding. And so now they're a host company. So, you know, it's you never know, when you're in a room with like-minded people, you take advantage of that. Know that you guys have friends in common, and you're there for a reason. So it's like already an icebreaker to potentially do business together. Speaking of business, something that we love, and it's a little forward thinking. It's not something that everybody is on right now. It's definitely you know, not something that everybody talks about like LinkedIn, but Bumble Biz is something that we think is a really smart place to align yourself. So Bumble is doing an incredible job. We do not work at Bumble. We are not representing Bumble. But we're all you know, young professionals who know and see all of the billboards and all of the marketing, all of the PR that they're doing. And there's such a smart team. Whitney's really leading the charge and really building a brand. She's on the cover of every magazine. That's their CEO. She's on the cover of every magazine. And so we look to her and we see what great branding. And there's not only a dating component to that, which we all know is Bumble, but there's two others. There's Bumble Friends, where you can make friends, and then there's Bumble Biz. And Bumble Biz is where you would have a profile, like I would have it as our, you know, national events director, or our CEO would have a profile as CEO of Vets Recruiting. And everybody else who has profiles, you interact with one another the same way that you do Bumble. So you can swipe right if you want to connect with them, or left. So imagine kind of like a LinkedIn profile, but an interactive where you're selecting who you want to interact with. And we think that we're going to start seeing a lot more of that. So if you're somebody who is, you know, really forward thinking and a hustler and really want to get out there and pound the pavement, that's a really cool place to be. Or if you're a little bit more traditional in your everyday life.
Yeah, and kind of segueing into that, just your everyday life. You never know who you're going to meet at what place. So whether you're out and about getting your hair done, going to the gym, I know that sometimes I wear my Vets sure at the gym, and I've worked with a lot of people that I've met there. So you just never know who's going to come up to you, get your nails done. I know Melissa, she's met a couple of people even at the dog park.
Everyone has an office dog in San Francisco.
Everyone. So I think that's just something to be mindful of and have these intentional conversations. Even when you're out and about when you least expect it, you can make great connections and build really genuine relationships when you don't necessarily think that you're going to be seeing anybody at the gym or getting your hair done or getting your nails done.
Yeah. And there's also other ways to meet people too for guys on here listening that you're not getting your hair done or your nails done. But the more traditional ways of just Uber Pool, Lyft Line, Chariot, any sort of ride sharing program. I know our CEO actually intentionally takes ride shares. She is definitely well off, does not need to do it from an expense standpoint, but you never know who you're going to meet. I know some of our recruiters, I think one of our recruiters after Tech Crawl got into an Uber and was talking to somebody, and his driver actually ended up coming in for a new candidate meeting the next day. So you just never know who you're going to meet, and never hurts to small talk and engage in conversation. Always being on is super important because you never know who you're going to meet.
Absolutely.
I love this because it's a really cool mix of being well-intentioned, and you've laid out a couple really clear places where people can go for good networking events, and then also kind of balancing it out with some serendipity. I mean, you kind of just have to always be thinking about this and approach it like it's fun. You're going to have some fun and meet some friends, and they may be professional connections or not, but those chances are kind of always there throughout your daily lives. I also love the tip about Bumble Biz. That's something that I hadn't heard of until you guys told me about it, so I'm going to be checking that out. I'm married, so I don't stay up on the dating apps.
Right on you, Colin.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I love it. Cool. So you're also going to tell us a little bit about how to actually make those interactions effective for business outcomes. I can't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah, totally. So, just to talk about, you're in these situations now, and then how do you really capture this information? Grab business cards and grab their information without seeming, forced or rushed, and keeping it, really genuine and warm. So as our events director here, I always have a guest list, right? I know who's coming to what events, and I share that information with the relevant parties. I also share it with attendees of certain events. So a lot of our events will have infographics, and it'll have your photo, your name, where you work, what your title is, and every attendee is going to receive that. So if you're somebody who's going to an event and you get that, that is your friend, right? This is your all access, who is coming, who is in that room that you can use to start doing, preparing for looking them up. So I always send that out. Or there's a lot of events that are huge, over 1,000 people, and we're not going to create one for that, but I still know who's coming. So ask your event point person. If you're at a company, just like my colleagues here, and they know, we're going to go to a Dreamforce yacht tomorrow night, who is coming, they'll ask me, I'll share it out. We keep that really fluid because we want all of our team to know who's in the room, right? It really behooves you to know that information. So if you're in a company, whatever that is, ask your marketing team, ask your event head, who's coming? Can you share that information and really start to have that as a part of your event layout, right? As just the same way you put a calendar invite on somebody's calendar, make sure that you capture the attendee list. Or if you're going to an event, reach out to that team and say, there's always a note for event information, email, such and such. Reach out to the event producer and say hey, can I have a list of who's coming? A lot of times they're going to say no, right? There are events that I'm not able to share that information for. In that case, go on and look at their social. Look at the LinkedIn post. Look at the Facebook post, Instagram post. Look who liked it. Look who commented, I'll see you there, right? Then oh, there's some attendees. And you can start, looking them up, which I know is something that our team is so great at.
Yeah. So we're always encouraging candidates, here. Lauren and I have recruiting backgrounds. We're thinking about, from an interview standpoint, but thinking about networking no differently. So looking up these attendees, whoever you know is going to be at the event, go on LinkedIn, see if you have any mutual connections, if you went to the same school, any sort of building rapport thing that you can grab. Great way to be able to go online and see, who's available, what they're doing, and ways to network. You never know, too. Anybody could be a contact in the future. So great to always keep in touch. And once you do find somebody that you do want to talk to, I think it's really important to put your best foot forward. And Lauren, I know you are always coaching candidates about that.
Absolutely. I think first impressions are everything, and it always starts with a strong handshake. I don't care who you are and what your background is, a strong handshake literally means everything to start building that relationship and show the confidence that you have and what you can bring to the table. And so I always make sure that you start with a handshake, and then make sure just, for other nuances, your body language. That means everything as well. If you're crossing your arms or being fidgety with your hands, that will come through and show that you're nervous, you're uncomfortable. So as much as sometimes it can be an uncomfortable situation, fake it till you make it, right? Make sure that you're leaning in, you're making good eye contact. Don't be standoffish, and really that's how you can start building that genuine relationship and ease into the conversation a little bit more. Obviously, with a lot of these networking events, the great perks are sometimes there are open bars, and just be mindful of that. There's always some etiquette to go along with that as well. So I would recommend 2 drinks for the night. You definitely don't want to be that person in the corner being a little bit overboard there. So I think just be mindful of how much that, you're there to network, you're there to build relationships. If you want to go out on the weekends, great, but this is a networking event to really build these lasting relationships. So there is going to be some sort of drinking etiquette as well as attire etiquette. You want to put your best foot forward. Again, this is your first impression to make, so you want to make a lasting one.
Totally. And then, instead of always asking for business cards, which can be a little forced sometimes, share yours, right? Yeah. Say, hey, I love chatting with you. It was really great to meet you. I'm going to give you my business card because I'd love to keep in touch. So it takes the pressure off. It's not like an ask, but it's a really, a great way to start that relationship and form it. And then usually they'll say, oh, great, and here's mine. So they'll kind of, follow in your footsteps, but lead the charge by offering yours first. And
keep in mind too that it is 2018, so business cards are great, but not every organization is going to have them. So taking advantage of your technology as well. So if you have to pull out your phone, add somebody on LinkedIn right then and there. It's super easy. Quickly take notes in your phone. Funny guy that went to University of Washington with me, like we bonded over this. Whatever it is, jot down notes so you're going to remember it. Like white tank top and the purple
you meet so many people throughout the day.
You're never going to remember everyone. Yeah. Like kudos to you if you can, but
I always go off of shirt colors or dress or what they wore, and just like that's how I remember people as the attire that they have.
Yeah. Totally. And just take notes, put it in your phone. Totally kosher to take out your phone during a networking event. I know some people are very anti-technology, but definitely use it to your advantage. It can work.
Yeah, totally.
So something that I've heard from people about doing the research beforehand and getting to know people on social media is that they feel like they're going too far or almost being creepy in a way. And somebody actually mentioned in the Q&A section that them being approached in an Uber for them would be a put-off. So how do we make networking how do we make it feel natural and friendly and not like we're being too overbearing or doing too much research? Is there a way around that, or is that something people just have to get used to?
Sorry, Colin, I didn't mean to interrupt. I know for these women, they can make friends with a brick wall, and we basically have the mindset of introduce yourself to everybody, right? Never assume that anybody knows who you are. Never meet a stranger. Treat people like anytime you're hosting something or you're attending something, treat people like you're hosting them in your own home. So I think that there's that really warm and genuine approach. We would never hop in an Uber and say, where do you work? Where's your card? But when you're in these Ubers and you chat with somebody, or like the driver does something funny, or it smells really bad, or it's kind of a long trek, you pull into traffic. You end up chatting with these people because you're sitting in the car with them, and you kind of can be strategic in asking, and really in a genuine way, what do you do? Where are you headed? And if you're all commuting to and from work. I was in an Uber last night and picked up a guy around the corner. Where our office is in the financial district. And he hopped in and he said, it's so cold. I was like, I know. It was hot all day. And then of course it got freezing at night. So he hops in and he said, what are you up to this week? And I was like, oh, it's Dreamforce week. Are you going to be doing a lot of events? And he was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm avoiding all of those. Actually, everybody in my lobby right now was just having beers. And I didn't know why, and I found out it was a Dreamforce party. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm saving my energy for tomorrow. He said, why? And I said, oh, we've got an event. He goes, what do you do? I said, I'm in tech recruiting. And he said, let me guess, you work for Bets. I'm not kidding. I was like, how did you know? And he said, because you guys, I hear about you all the time. I said, well, what are you up to? And he works at Twitch. He's a developer for Twitch. And so, you're really able, when you're in a community, especially down in your working area, all of your neighbors are your friends, right? You're all going to the same restaurants, you're all going to the same bars, you're having lunch at the same places, you're grabbing coffee at the same places. So you should really be mindful of, hey, we're down in this concentrated area, and, let's find out what they're up to in a normal way. And then you don't know who you're going to end up doing business with, right? Like, yeah, I'm not going to do business with this guy in the Uber last night, but I developed a relationship and actually invited him to one of our events. So I handed him my card and said, you should come to the event. It's going to be super fun. If I hear from him, great. If I don't, fine. But it's more of just like that genuine connection that we're really referencing.
Yeah,
I love that. I think it's a lot about style too. Like, I personally would never do this, but I had a colleague who met somebody at a concert, and they've been in touch for years. And I think of myself as a pretty flexible networker. I love meeting people, but I just never would turn to somebody at a concert and start a relationship in that context. So maybe some of it's just about doing what's comfortable for you. Is that fair to say?
Totally, and I don't think that we think of it as networking. It is us living lives, being interested in other people, making it about others, not making it about ourselves, and really taking interest, in others. What are you doing? What are you up to? And then real genuine relationships are formed. That's one of our values here at Bets is, we build genuine relationships. So we're meeting people, you're all of our friends, we all hang out in the same social groups, or, you meet somebody new, you meet somebody on an airplane. It's really just making genuine relationships, and then you never know what business may or may not come from that one day.
Yeah, I love it. And I think a lot of this too might just be about how you open. So we've got those tips on ice breaking later on. So we'll get there. I don't want to rush us, but let's move on so we can try to make it there.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of all of this, you want to ensure, that your initial leads turn into business value. I know that, that's something that our recruiters do really incredibly well here. So, Lauren, maybe tell us about.
Absolutely. So I think after you meet somebody and you have that initial conversation, something to just be mindful of is make sure to keep in touch with them. So I always like to send them a personalized quick note afterwards on LinkedIn. So if they mention that they're going to a football game this weekend or they're going wine tasting, always say, hey, so-and-so, it's great to meet you. I hope you have a blast wine tasting this weekend. Looking forward to staying in touch. And then a couple of days later or a week later, I'll make sure to follow up. Hey, I hope you had a great time. How was it? Did you have any good, red wine recommendations? I'd love to grab coffee this week just to hear, how your week's going or anything like that. Again, I think just keeping it casual is the most important thing. A lot of my outreach isn't necessarily when are we going to work together? How are we going to partner in the future? It's just like, how's it going? Like, do you want to go grab a drink? Do you want to go meet up for coffee? And just that's how I met a lot of my friends. And if I work together with them, great. If I don't, then I can continue to keep that friendly relationship, and they're both, great value to me. So it doesn't always necessarily, to your point, Colin, have to be awkward or uncomfortable. And I think just picking up on cues and reading them, or seeing how you can be a resource or add value to them in the future is great. And if they're like, hey, I'm not interested at all, you don't need to keep bombarding them with follow-ups to work together. You can just say, great, let's go grab a drink and talk about your date you had over the weekend, and just keep it casual. And I think that's how you can just really continue to build these, relationships with people.
Totally.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, totally. And I think, keep that momentum alive, right? Like, get something on the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I know that y'all are so great at that. When you have, you have this kind of personalized note, but then it's time to, okay, great, let's get something on the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, don't y'all have like a system in place, the sequences that you guys can use?
Yeah, so training people here at Bets, we've, onboarded 50 people in the last quarter, and it would be absolutely nuts for us to tell them to go to networking events and remember every single person you reached out to, and remember on what day you need to follow up with them. That's just horrible, crazy, like that's a nightmare for me. And so we're all about working smarter, not necessarily harder. So especially, again, being 2018, all these amazing tools out there. We've used both Outreach and SalesLoft here at Bets. So whether you're a Cadence user, a Sequence user, but putting somebody in some sort of task or reminder so that way you know to follow up with them. Because again, not everybody is going to be an immediate person that say, hey, we at Bets could work with and recruit immediately. And not every person is going to be somebody that could be a mentor or something today or tomorrow, but you never know. So keeping in touch, the value is super small. You never know when you're going to want to talk to someone. Mm-hmm. So just maintaining that genuine relationship and, just as simple as setting a reminder for yourself using Outreach or SalesLoft or Salesforce, setting a task that way to be able to keep in touch, not lose that contact. And then when you genuinely met them and said you're going to keep in touch, you're actually acting on what you say you were going to do.
Totally. And for me, one thing I do is our national events director. I'm constantly in the logistics, I'm doing events, and I'm meeting all of the people that my team needs to meet. So I always am mindful to immediately, in the right way, in the right time, introduce the right people on my team into this conversation, right? So if it's a potential client, I'm going to ping and bring on my BD team. If it's a marketing candidate, I'm going to bring on that team. So staying mindful and making sure that you've now developed this relationship with somebody, you guys are chatting, and now you need to introduce the right person on your team into that relationship is smart.
I love that. My favorite part of, I always try to bring some value to somebody that you meet. You find out what they need, like if they need help, house shopping or finding a good bar nearby, you can just help them a little bit. One of my favorite things to do to help people is make an introduction. Because it just feels so natural, and you're kind of meeting two needs at the same time sometimes.
Right. Always be connecting people. It's really great, and you'll always be connected back. So
yeah,
you
karma
do that.
Goes around, comes around.
Yeah. So one thing that is always never fun, but it definitely happens, and we should always be mindful, is reviving a dying conversation. We've all been a part of them. We've all contributed to them, I'm sure, some maybe more than others, but, it's something that really happens, and I think that recognition is key.
Yeah, so, it's only going to be awkward if you make it awkward. I think that's, rule number one of networking, too. But there are going to be times where, the conversation goes silent. Hopefully you don't forget their name, but not all networking events have name tags, or maybe it fell off, or they put their jacket on, you can't see it. So things are going to happen. Don't ignore, the conversation or sit there looking miserable, but, that's a perfect time to maybe exit the conversation and say, hey, it was so great meeting with you. I want to make sure I get a chance to meet some other people in the room. That's one thing.
Or something I do is I'll introduce a colleague. If I know it's a dying conversation, I'll look across the room or somewhere nearby. If I, and say, hey, I really want you to meet Lauren. She's so great. And I'll be like, Lauren, come here. And then you can bring that person over to, start a new, fresh energy. And if you forget somebody's name, that's the perfect way. I hate to say it happens, but it does. I am guilty of this all the time. If I forget somebody's name, let's say I'm chatting with Melissa, the conversation's dying, I have no idea what her name is, it's not going well. I'm going to be like, hey, Lauren, come here. I really want you to meet my colleague, Lauren. And then wait for them to give the cue. Lauren's going to, extend her hand, and then she's going to say, hey, I'm Melissa. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's Melissa. Great, right. You kind of can avoid those situations.
A great tip, too, for remembering somebody's name is repeat it back. So, oh, you're Lauren. Lauren, so great to meet you.
L-A, no, I'm kidding. And then you can always just ask them about themselves, right? People love to talk about themselves. People love to be asked about themselves. Don't ever make it about you. So you can just always, make it about that person and capturing information about, or not capturing information, but really just trying to get to know them better instead of, telling them what you're up to.
Or compliment them too. That's
totally.
And be genuine about this too. If someone's wearing, a cute dress or shoes, oh my gosh, I love your dress. Where did you get it? And I love that. And that's always been receptive. And so I recommend doing that.
Or it's a great time to ask oh, you look down, their drink is, isn't full. Hey, can I grab you another drink? What are you drinking? They say I'm good. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to go grab something, so I'll be right back. It's a great way to exit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of this is stuff you might have to learn the hard way. So this is the stuff I think people get afraid of in networking. They just don't want to get stuck in a conversation where they're the boring one, or where they're speaking with somebody that they're just not interested in. Some of this is just practice, right? Like, these are great tips, and now people can go into these situations armed with some things to at least try out, and maybe mess up a few times, but that's okay, right?
All in it together, right? We all have to go into these rooms with a bunch of strangers. It's really great. Meet new people, stay confident, know that you're there for a reason. You were invited to this event, or you're interviewed, where you don't need to look down, right? Like, make eye contact, make it genuine, and people are really warm and kind and receiving. So, yeah. So back to your point, you had mentioned a little earlier about the icebreakers. So we're really great on building, we really believe in building strong, intentional relationships. So there's a lot of great icebreakers out there. Something that that I love, I happen to love sports. I'm a sports fanatic. College football is my favorite thing in the whole wide world. But even if you don't love sports, that's okay, because everybody, is an alum of somewhere. Most people are. And so find out where they went to school. So, hey, Lauren, how are you? Great to meet you. You can kind of come up like, oh, where did you go to school? She says, I went to Cal. You can say, go Bears, right? Or I went to Texas. So I say, oh, hook 'em. Or I went to Michigan, go Blue. I think it's really great to kind of stay well-versed in that and make that connection. People love that, right? People are fanatical about where they went to school. So, kind of stay well-versed in what's going on in academia.
Mm-hmm. And my favorite thing is, how'd you hear about this event, right? Everyone's at a networking event. How did they hear about it? Oh, you heard about it from that billboard. Oh, awesome. I drive by that billboard every day on the way to work. Or, oh, Facebook. Oh, that's awesome. Like, I heard about the event that way too. It's just a great way to open up the conversation. And then just, us three being in the Bay Area, always a good conversation starter with where are you from, maybe which neighborhood, do you live in, like which favorite bar. It doesn't necessarily have to be, specifically about, getting them as a candidate right away, but more so building that genuine relationship and getting to know them as a person. McCall, you said this earlier, but like, make it about them. Ask them where they're from, which neighborhood they're living in now, how they like it, how long they've been in the area. Just a great way to start conversation, because you never know when you'll run into them or what to talk about.
Yeah. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these events will have those open bars, so sometimes you'll be waiting in line, and so that's a great way to strike up conversation right then and there. So you can ask them, oh, what are you drinking? Would you like me to grab you another drink? And ask them, oh, that drink looks great. What is that? So just, again, breaking the ice, or going back to, hey, your dress is so cute. Where is it from? So just asking them questions and having them feel a little bit more comfortable about, what they're drinking, what they're having, and then you can get into deeper conversation.
And for better, for worse, being in tech, you always see people wearing t-shirts, backpacks with their company logos. That's also a great conversation, making it about them. The benefit too of working at Bets is I like to think that we're pretty well versed in the industry and the space. So, if I see, McCall on the train wearing a Bets backpack, I'm like, oh, Bets is awesome. My friend actually worked with you guys back in the day, or, oh, we're using you guys to hire. Just a great conversation starter. And again, you're making it about them. You're maybe complimenting on what they wear. Oh, that's one of the better looking t-shirts with the logos that I've seen.
Backpack.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to also find new swag and go back to your HR and ask them to order that for your company too.
Yeah.
We just saw some new swag that they're metal straws, like branded metal straws. Just FYI, so everybody asks for companies those.
You'd be surprised what you see. But I think
Just when you think they've thought of everything, it's metal straws.
Definitely. And I think just at the end of the day, approach with confidence. We joke all the time here at Bets that a lot of what we do is like matchmaking, and we relate it back to dating. And so silly, but you can even see how, Bumble, a dating app, is now converting to business, taking advantage of technology, all this stuff. Dating is very, very similar to networking, as crazy as it sounds. So just approaching with confidence, fake it till you make it. It's only awkward if you make it awkward. You
We're all
know,
in it together.
we're all in it together, putting yourself like back in, you know, whether you're dating now or you were back in the day, like the old fashioned ways too of like going in a bar, seeing somebody you want to talk to, just literally, okay, you know, owning it and say, I'm going to go talk to this person, I'm going to introduce myself, whether it's 5 seconds, 5 minutes, I'm going to make the most of this conversation, I'm going in with intent, I'm going to introduce myself, and you know what, if it doesn't work, you know, Colin, like you said earlier, practice makes perfect. You're not going to be the perfect networker immediately, so start small, go to smaller events, and build your confidence and work your way up to, you know, the bigger events like Dreamforce, so the time you get there, you're an absolute pro.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's the truth. There's no secret to it, right? This is where, for a second, I just want to ask the audience, if you have icebreakers that you have used or you have heard used that you liked, feel free to pop them in the Q&A so we can all get them. We'll share them with everybody. And I also wanted to ask, I've heard of a term called the 5-second stare. So some icebreakers aren't verbal, right? Is that, I've heard it used. I don't really know what it is. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I told Colin about this. So I was with my girlfriend a million years ago, and we would kind of do it it started off as like a dating thing, but it really works. Like 100% of the time it works. It's wild. If you 5-second stare at somebody, and that means true eye contact without letting it go for 5 seconds, you and that person will be talking. So use it cautiously. Do not use it on anybody you do not want to talk to. But it works. If you can 5-second stare at somebody that you want to talk to, it works, right? It's a little longer than a normal stare. It's not creepy. I know we're laughing, but it really does work. So use it wisely when you want to talk to somebody, but it really just shows it kind of builds like, hey, I'm confident and I am looking at you and I'm looking at you on purpose and I want to chat with you. So
I love that because it's kind of brave. People often shy away from eye contact. So how do people react to that though? Like what's the...
Oh, it's great. People love it and they smile because they know that you mean to be looking at them, and it really, I'm not kidding, it works.
I love that so much.
The 10 seconds would be creepy. A 5-second stare is time to be intentional, so that you're not like, you know, blinking really quickly. A 5-second stare means, hey, I definitely want to talk to that person. I want to talk to you.
Yeah, 10's a little much. I think.
Do not do that ever. But yeah, 5-second stare.
Cool. I love it. So this has been hugely helpful. I just want to make sure if we have any other questions from the audience that we have a second to answer them.
All right. Ask away.
Yeah. And one other thing that I wanted to ask about is, so, you know, if you go to a lot of these things, you're meeting a lot of people, and like you said, you can't remember everybody. So you've talked about a couple ways to kind of scale up your ways of keeping in touch with everybody and making sure that there's some kind of real relationship ongoing. I think you mentioned outreach and SalesLoft and a couple other tools to do that. I guess my question is, at what point, is there a point at which you stop trying to do that with somebody? At what point do you consider the relationship to be just kind of falling flat and you move on? Because if you just kept going, right, you'd have like thousands of people at all times kind of in your pool. Or is there a point where you kind of cut it off? How does that work?
I think that, you know, again, right after you meet them, you want to keep the constant communication. So constant, I'd say like every other week or every week to start, then every other week. And then you can slowly, you know, have a couple months go by. Hey, I hope you have a great summer. I read this article and I thought of you for it. Hope you're doing well. Let me know if it makes sense for us to hop on a quick call or grab coffee this week. I think, again, it always goes back to social cues, and you can read into if somebody is just not responding, never has written you back, then you can kind of take the point. I don't think you need to keep bombarding them with outreach and messages after you've reached out to them 10 times and nothing. And you can even send them a note, hey, looks like everything is going great on your end. If anything changes, I'm more than happy, you know, to pick up this conversation or help anybody in your network. So this is a great way for you to also ask for referrals or anything along those lines. But I think you can start segueing your way off of communication if you're not getting that response. And sometimes people will just say, hey, I'm not really interested in talking, and I've been like, great, I totally hear you, respect that. So I think a lot of it just goes into your social cues and your gut feeling about the situation.
I totally
Sure.
agree. I think it's really important to stay memorable at the beginning. So having a little bit higher of a sense of urgency and consistently following up. But again, reading your social cues. And if somebody's not responding and it's a one-way situation, probably let it go.
Yeah.
Not forever, but maybe let, a couple months go by before you ping them again. I think, at the end of the day, we're all somewhat connected to sales, being, a part of the Sales Hacker event. So I think it's important that we are persistent, but, there is a fine line of persistence and being annoying.
Yeah.
Sure. And then so similarly for events, we really opened up the universe of where you can be trying to build relationships or networking, depending on what you call it. So you can kind of do it anywhere, right? But is there a point at which you start to X out events, and how do you recognize places not to be or not to try to do this?
I think Eventbrite is great. They always have so many wide range of events to go to, whether it's social or professional, that you can filter it. And then it also shows you, I believe as well, what's free and what costs money, so you can prioritize that way.
Totally. I would expand on that, saying when you're a little bit more junior in your career, right, you're going to you're hustling more in a different way. So you're going to kind of go to anything and everything that you can get your hands on. You're going to be looking at Meetup, you're going to be looking at Eventbrite, you're going to be looking at Time Out, anything in your network. You're going to be looking at newsletters and really Facebook events, things like that. When you're a little bit more senior in your career, you're going to be strategic about where you're going and what you say yes to and what you are speaking to, right? Your time is a little bit more precious. That, okay, I've got Dreamforce this week. Everybody's having a party. There are 10 million open bars in San Francisco right now. There are lobby bars happening. There are pop-ups happening. But there are some really, really invite-only parties happening, right? You have to have an all-access badge. You had to be, you can be on the penthouse at the Battery because you were invited, or wherever you are. So I think being a little bit more strategic in what you select is as important too, as you kind of grow in your career, and not just say yes to everything, but align yourself with like-minded people and who you want to be in the room with, and try to go to those events.
And going off of that, for example, I know that Dreamforce specifically, I think today and tomorrow have a lot of sales engineering developer meetups. So it's all about going to your interests, your needs, and how you want to continue to build your career and make those specific connections. So I know my colleagues that are on more of the team technical side that we have here, they are going to be out at those events all day long, because that's what pertains to their interests and pertains to their career. So I think, again, just be strategic with what events you want to go to, with who's going to be there, and it's what's going to, make sure that it's something that you're going to be continuing your career in this specific topic.
Right. Cool. I love this. So many actionable tips that we might just want to review quickly. Do y'all want to run through what we picked up today?
Yeah, sure. So come prepared, right? Be intentional. Know what you're walking into. Do your homework if you can. Look people up on LinkedIn if you can. Don't be creepy, but it's okay to, look up a few people, just like you do before a call, right? Who am I hopping on a call with? Who else in this meeting? It's the same way, right? So be prepared, and be your genuine, warm self. Don't be aggressive. Don't be, there's no need for that. So just be really warm and intentional.
And I think, following up with everyone immediately afterwards, so making sure that you are, saying what you said you were going to do. Great, keep in touch, looking forward to, talking in the future. Okay, great, ping them the next day. Then it's oh, wow, Melissa said she was going to do what she said she was going to do. So making sure that follow-up is huge. If you follow up 2 weeks later, people might have gone to 2 or 3 networking events since then, and they're going to go, who's that?
I've heard something, and I don't know who all puts this into play, but I do know one huge company. This is their CEO's motto, is if they reach out to you and you don't respond within 3 hours, they're not going to reach out to you again. And of course that take that with a grain of salt. That's not for everything. But when a company reaches out to you or something, and if that's something that, that is something that you want to align with, I think it's smart to reply and engage with the outreach in quick time. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think something too, when you're engaging with somebody, be curious about them. Be genuine with your response. Get to know them on a personal level. Make it about them. That is also a great way for them to also open up when you're genuinely curious about their background, where they're coming from, where they're going. So just make sure to dig in about, their interests.
Definitely. And then, leverage your, opportunities, right? So am I in an Uber pool? Am I at a bar? Am I across the street grabbing lunch? Am I at an event with similar people? Wherever you are, am I at the gym? I meet people at appointments all the time. When you're sitting in the waiting room, you meet somebody next to you. Actually got a girl to come on as a candidate, because of that, you never know who you're going to meet, right? We're all kind of in this together. We're all living in our communities together. We're all traveling. You meet people on planes. Great place to meet people is at an airport. Mm-hmm. Sit at the bar, at a restaurant in the airport. Meet the people next to you. I think more business is done in the airport than a lot of times throughout a whole business work week. So, be intentional. Know your surroundings. And look at these, get creative in how you start looking at opportunities and where you are.
Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, moral of the story, just always be on.
Yep.
You never know who you're going to meet, where you're going to meet them. I feel like, Colin, like you were saying at the beginning, everything is kind of serendipitous. It always happens when you least expect it, type of thing. So just make sure you are always on and always open to engaging in a conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all the tips. What I love about this is that it is simple. Anybody can do this, and a lot of it's just about starting. So people in the Sales Hacker community, just go try some of this stuff. You're going to make mistakes. That's okay. We're all just people. And these are, everybody's trying to do the same things that you are. Melissa, Lauren, and McCall, thank you all so much for joining. If people want to follow you or learn more about Bets Recruiting, where can they do that?
You can get a hold of us. So our emails are here. Ping us. We'd love to chat with you. We always are making friends. We always have a lot of cool events going on. We're natural connectors. So McCall at Bets Recruiting, Melissa at Bets Recruiting, and Crane at Bets Recruiting. We happen to have a lot of Laurens. So if you email Lauren at Bets Recruiting, somebody here will also get it. But it'll be another Lauren, so it's fine. But yeah, we'd love to keep in touch. And if you have any questions from today's webinar, the guides, we've got a ton of events coming up. We do these big tech crawls all over. We've got our New York tech crawl coming up on October 18. So we'll have hundreds of really cool people and tons of really cool companies. So yeah, keep in touch with us. And Colin, thank you for having us. This was really great for us as well. So good luck out there at Dreamforce and your respective communities across the globe. And let us know if we can be of any help at any time.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Sales Hacker folks, remember to look for the recording, which we'll be sending out soon, and also a link to the Bets Recruiting No BS guide to Dreamforce. That's a nice little extra bonus piece for you that's especially useful this week. Thanks for joining, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Bye, Colin. Bye, everyone.